it on over to you.
I was totally calling these talks Nami Go. I'm really happy that you pronounced that for me. So yeah, you can call me Dr. K. My college students get confused on what my last name is since I have a hyphenated last name, which I think is quite funny. So for just brevity purposes, you can call me Dr. K for tonight. I'm really excited to share just different modalities that we can enter into this evening to prep for what we have ahead. All that you really need is a chair. Doesn't matter what type of chair that you have. You can even do this on the ground. But we will be doing chair yoga just to make the practice accessible for all populations. And just to allow us to get more embodied before we start to talk some more. And me being the teacher that I am, we're going in short bursts really this entire time. So I know that my attention span tends to go all over the place. So we'll do 10 minutes at a time where we'll talk and then we'll do an activity. And when I say activity, it's not a lot of movement, so I got you. But we'll do some mindfulness exercises that you can transcend into your everyday practice. So that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen, which is literally the most common quote that you hear as a professor or a teacher. Let me share my screen. I feel like that should be my next tattoo. All right. And here we go. If you cannot see the screen, definitely let me know via the reaction tabs, or you can do like a high five or wave me down or hit me up in the chat. But I wanted to get started just kind of showing you what we have ahead, and then we'll do a chair yoga practice. So we'll do chair yoga for about 10 minutes. I wanted to discuss the impact of 2020 as a whole on mental health, and why we need more resiliency-based tools now more than ever. We'll do a guided breathwork practice, explain what radical self-care is, what the difference between self-care and then the radical nature of it. Do a brief meditation, and then we'll look at a couple coping tools that you can put into your daily life. And then I really wanted you to leave with a plan of action. And that can be something that you can do outside of this workshop, because it might take you a little bit to really get clear on some of the questions that will be asked on the worksheet itself. And finally, we'll end with a yoga nidra practice, which is basically a prolonged meditation. And for that, you can even go into your bed, which would be really nice, like setting you up for a really cozy evening. So just, again, I wanted to show that specifically, and also take note that all of this are optional activities. Really, we're trying to develop grit and resiliency and grace. And part of this practice is advocacy work. So if you find that something in this agenda here is not suitable for you for this evening, you always have the option to opt out and be like, I'm gonna go get some tea, or I'm gonna eat my dinner. But I wanted you to be aware, just from a trauma-informed perspective, of what's coming up, and that you always have the option to opt out or fully enter in, okay? So with that being said, I'm gonna turn on my other device, and we'll do a quick chair yoga practice. So take about the next minute to set up yourself for where you would like to practice, be it the couch, be it your dining room table, while I set up for myself on my end. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sign myself as Spotlight real quick.
All right. So as you can see, I have my handy dandy chair. Again, let me know if you can hear me okay. If you could give me like a reaction tab, or Aaron, if you could just give, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So wherever you have chosen your position for this chair yoga practice this evening, it's okay if it has arms. It's okay if it doesn't have arms. You're good. But we'll start out with just some brief breath work to become more embodied with where we're at tonight. And you have the option to keep your eyes closed or eyes open, and feel free to even turn off your screen if that feels more comfortable for you while we're taking some movement together. So if you've chosen to close your eyes, let's enter into that space now with just a couple big breaths in through your nose and exhale, sigh out through your mouth. Let's do two more. Inhale, breathe in. And exhale out. Last time, inhale. And last time, exhale. If you had your eyes open, allow them to open back up and come towards the edge of your seat so you can start to feel your sit bones ground down, and place your hands down into your lap, palms face down. Just take a nice roll of your shoulders back, lengthen out through your spine, and continue to breathe with those inhales that we just cued earlier. From here, we'll exaggerate the shoulder rolls and use our breath to move with the shoulder rolls as well. Inhale, lift your shoulders up to your ears, almost like they're shoulder earrings. Then exhale, drop your shoulders down your back. We'll continue to exaggerate that movement to inhale, lift, and exhale, lower. Let's do one more time. Inhale, and exhale, lower down your back. On your next breath, sweep your arms up towards the ceiling, and then drop one arm down towards the side of the chair. You can continue to sit upright into your spine, or maybe you want to start to lean towards the dropped arm, just elongating deeper into your rib cage, creating even more breath into the side body. Gaze can be wherever feels comfortable for you, maybe gaze up or even gaze down. Then we'll switch arms out towards the other side to inhale, lift. Then you can continue to stay upright, or exhale, start to lean. And notice how when we switch sides, might feel different. And when we're taking these mindful movement exercises, really trying to drop any labeling or judgment from this perceived exertion, but just offering curiosity to yourself first and foremost. On your exhale, drop both hands down towards the chair. And I'm going to turn the chair off to the side just so you can see a little bit better. I like to call this Titanic pose. You'll see why in a minute if you've seen the movie. Grab towards the back of the chair. And then on your inhale, press your chest forward, draw your shoulders down your back, maybe gaze up towards the ceiling. So kind of feel like Leonardo DiCaprio here saying, I'm king of the world, or whatever you want to yell out. Now you can keep your gaze high or even forward. Maybe you want to drop your chin down towards your chest. So for this chair practice, you're going to hear me say a whole lot of maybes. As one pose might feel very different than the other for your body tonight. Just continue to enter in with curiosity and awareness, a sense of ease, and definitely a sense of grace. Wherever you're at, go ahead and release that Titanic pose. Place the hands directly back on towards the top of the quads. And then very slowly, we'll start to walk your hands towards your knees. And then maybe you want to slide them down towards your shins, or even all the way down towards your feet. Just allowing yourself to hang into this gentle forward fold, really trying to release the weight of your head. I always thought this was such an interesting fact that our heads actually weigh as much as a bowling ball, which is quite a lot. And so we got to thank our neck every single day for holding up that weight. But it's also really nice to get that nice free stretch using gravity to our advantage. And just as slowly as you came down towards this fold, start to walk your hands back up towards your quads. And we'll take a twist. Take your right hand, wave it in the air. And I'm not going to mirror you tonight because sometimes that gets confusing for me. Right hand, take it towards the back of the chair. Then left hand can go towards the outer edge of that right knee. Gaze can continue to stay forward. So just being mindful of your neck. Maybe you want to gaze towards the side or even towards the back of the chair. Still taking note of your breath, allowing insight into breath and body. And then slowly switch out sides. So the transitions are just as important as the poses themselves, that we can continue to offer curiosity into how we're moving. And just noticing whether we're moving fast or slow. It's really not a judgment of good or bad in that space, but really just an observation. Come back towards the center. We'll all meet there and we'll do one last stretch on each leg. Grab your right leg in towards your chest. Then you can circle out your ankle. On my end, you might hear the snap, crackles, pops. I like to say that music is just your body thanking you, especially if it's making a lot of noise. Then switch out the legs. So also getting into the hip flexors here when we do give ourselves that hug. Then again, circling out the ankles. One side might make more music than the other. Again, taking note of that. And we'll drop both feet back down towards the ground. Continue to sit up tall into your spine. We'll take 3 more deep breaths before we enter back into a quick talk. Inhale, breath in through your nose. And exhale, sigh out through your mouth. 2 more, inhale. Exhale. Last time, inhale. And exhale, release. And wherever you are at, if you need to switch positions now, take about the next 30 seconds to do so, as I do on my end. And we're going to transfer back over to the presentation.
All right, I'm back. There we go. I'm in a very small room. It probably, just because I have different angles, it might look like a very big room, but it's not. It's an illusion. So I always think that's quite funny when I change devices. All right, I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen now. And please feel free to add into the chat if you're like, hey, I had a question about that pose or that practice. And if you want to come back into the Zoom room, if you feel comfortable in that space, I would love to see your face. And if not, that's totally okay too. Again, advocacy is really why we're here. All right. So we're talking about grit and grace. I do love alliteration, by the way. So I love a good catchy title, but I strongly believe, and research has shown, that grit and grace are quite necessary to create a sense of resiliency for ourselves and also for others. So before we get into what the nitty-gritty of radical self-care is, I wanted to set the stage of what the research is showing for the crisis that we were experiencing still today and even last year. So a lot of the times what happens in research, and it's quite unfortunate, it takes a long time to get peer-reviewed research. So a lot of what we have right now is we're analyzing what happened during the lockdowns. So what we can see from the very beginning of the pandemic, meaning like data collection started in February to about June, July, is that, as you could probably imagine, it's greatly impacting mental health. So as a whole, if we were to do a cross comparison of what has happened in the past when we look at incidents of large scale trauma, we tend to look at traumatic events such as research from the World Trade Center, natural disasters, which with what happens with, again, when hurricanes destroy communities, and even environmental disasters. So a lot of what has been based in the area of mental health and the research that has been shown is we're kind of getting a baseline from what has happened in other disasters prior to this. But there was a cross-sectional study, international cross-sectional study that was quite interesting, that data collected from April to May of 2020 really showed the extreme issues that were occurring with depression, anxiety, and stress in a generalized population. So it was quite a large-scale undertaking where they were surveying people from India, the United States, Canada, and what was shown is that certain coping skills were being used, but it wasn't positive coping skills. So go figure. And I thought that was quite interesting. So even though research was coming out very early on that was suggesting positive coping skills, this article that was just written within, I think it was December, don't quote me on that, I need to double check, was showing that they weren't doing positive coping skills. So that's why I really wanted to talk tonight about like what positive coping skills we can do and what is so radical about it. Because again, we suggested it in the past, but people weren't taking heed of it and why that might have occurred, like what the disconnect was. And so that's what I wanted to really talk about tonight is like, what's the difference between entering into a coping skill and then going back to a negative coping skill, what that looks like. As a whole, and I again, this will be the last slide for evidence before we start talking more about what coping skills we can enter into. Thought it was interesting, and this is also models even outside of the pandemic itself, is that females were reporting more stress as a whole. India reported the highest amounts of psychological distress, and again, psychological distress encompasses stress, anxiety, and depression. And then the United States was listed as second. The coping strategies used did vary by gender. And they also varied by profession. And again, I thought that this was interesting to note in that the top strategies included, some of these would be healthy, some of them I would question. Watching television for entertainment, social networking, listening to music, sleeping, mundane house chores like cleaning, washing, etc., eating well, and clearing and finishing up piled work. Again, I thought that was quite interesting to know, like, okay, in a pandemic, what coping skills are people actually going to? And so those were listed as the top, and that was more from an international examination. So the potential long-term impact and why we do really need to talk about self-regulation strategies as a whole and how we can positively enter into them is a lot more research is now being done on CPTSD, which is continued PTSD. What's interesting about what's happening right now within the collective consciousness is the PTSD hasn't stopped. So we were seeing effects of PTSD all the way back in June. When the pandemic has continued, so does the PTSD, and it compiles, which is, again, like, and I don't want to say this because I haven't looked thoroughly at the research for cross-examining other types of continued PTSD, but what I can imagine is that this is probably one of the first times that we've seen this at a grand scale for CPTSD. But again, I don't want to say that as a matter of fact because I haven't looked at the research for that. So now let's get into how we can cope. Just a brief definition of what self-regulation is. Really, we're looking to develop an understanding of one's motivation and behavior. And that looks both at the mental, the cognitive self-regulation, and also the emotional self-regulation, and even the physical self-regulation. So it's a bunch of different things that compile into one idea of self-regulation. And why I wanted to specifically kind of break those 3 elements down is that when we do get to your towards the very end, when we're looking at steps towards action, you're going to see on that sheet that there's a couple questions that relate to the physical, the emotional, and then the cognitive. And so when we ask ourselves certain questions into how to develop resiliency, we have to really address the whole being, the holistic nature of who we are. Because again, I can self-regulate all day physically by just doing deep breathing, but I also have to self-regulate emotionally and maybe journal. So there's going to be certain things that really resonate with you, that you can curate basically your toolbox or your handy dandy tool belts that you can just pull out whenever you need it if you're feeling, again, emotionally dysregulated or cognitively dysregulated. All right, so I wanted to provide this script on this. I would like to share this presentation with y'all because there is a lot of facts in this. But we're going to enter into a guided breath work now. It'll be about 5 to 7 minutes tops. So again, I'm trying to offer varied strategies that address the whole aspect of self-regulation. So guided breath work is really addressing the physical nature, but it's also addressing the emotional, as breath work hits at the different parts of the central nervous system. And this specific breath work really hits the parasympathetic, that rest and digest state that allows us to calm our physical body, but also our emotional body. And it allows us to feel more at ease. So enough explaining for now. Again, you have the option to turn off your video if that's your preference for this meditation exercise. But I'll be reading directly from this script, which you can take home for yourself. So find another seated position that allows you to breathe deeply. It might be the same seat that you entered into when you're doing your chair practice. Once you've found that space, you have the option to keep your eyes open or closed. And I invite you to first notice where you are physically and where you feel supported. One option might be to directly bring your hands to your body, starting with your belly. Maybe you instead place your hand on your heart if that feels safer. You might gently inquire to yourself, is it easy to breathe in my belly? And if it feels like it's dis-ease, maybe you breathe predominantly into your chest instead. So continuing to advocate for yourself and where it might feel best to breathe deeply. Continue to invite a gentle exploration. And there's really no right or wrong way in how you're observing your breath. And when it feels complete and your observation of your diaphragm more towards your belly, maybe you now move your hands up more towards your thorax or your midsection, and invite curiosity here. Is it easier or harder than my belly? And what provides you a sense of ease or dis-ease? And how can you show up for yourself in even how we breathe? When it feels complete, continue to invite awareness in and move your hands more towards your upper chest. And see if you can detect just how much the body expands when taking in a breath. Next, I invite you to bring one hand to your belly while the other stays on the chest. And just notice which part of your body rises first on your inhale. And then invite your attention to notice your exhale and which part of the body descends first. And when that feels complete, place your hands or your attention wherever you feel like it was the most restorative breath. Continue just to allow your breath to go in and out. Continuing to observe what feels best for you. We'll take one more full round of breath here. And let it out with a gentle sigh. Then when you're ready to come back into the room, feel free to join with camera or audio. And for that specific breath technique, a lot of what's now happening in the mindfulness world, as far as like research is concerned, within the past 5 years, there's been a lot of research within trauma-informed mindfulness and what that actually looks like. So I'll speak from personal experience, because I don't want to speak for really anybody else. But for me, when I'm exploring my breath, a lot of the times it doesn't feel comfortable at first for me to breathe diaphragmatically, meaning placing one hand on my belly. As somebody that's recovered from an eating disorder, that's somewhere that I tend to not go even to this day, that it's initially quite challenging to enter in. So instead, I try to invite a sense of curiosity first, because that's more healing compared to the right and wrong nature that sometimes society says, you need to do this. It takes me time to enter into a diaphragmatic breath. And sometimes I can't go there completely, and that's also okay, because I know where I can feel my breath and I move it up instead more towards my chest, because that feels safer. But again, we invite curiosity into what feels safe. and then you choose what your breathing exercise, what your preference in breathing exercise is. So again, from a trauma-informed lens, we invite curiosity and where the deep breath occurs in a safe manner, okay? So I definitely wanted to pinpoint that. So as we continue to move on, I hope that you are getting whatever you need, even bathroom breaks, so you can do what you need to do on your end. We're going to now talk about what radical self-care is and why it's necessary. And I'm going to go over this pyramid in just a second and also take note of the word choice and kind of rewire some of the words and how they might be more appropriate from a trauma-informed lens. So the definition from research from Illinois State says radical self-care is the assertion that you have the responsibility to take care of yourself first before attempting to take care of others. And the radical nature of this is basically like the cueing that you always hear on an airplane, that you have to put on your own mask before you put it on somebody else. That's what's radical about the self-care. Because again, society tends to say, you know, we gotta, like, I need to take care of this person, and we forget to examine our own self. So it's necessary to fill your cup first, then to give others from the overflow itself. And this is where we heal. So if you look at the pyramid of healing, I feel like this really explains it quite nicely. We start out with conscious awareness. And that's why I wanted to start out with a breathing practice and also a physical practice with chair yoga. Because when we start to become more aware and gain deeper insight into what's going on with us, then we can start to move into the resiliency piece, the grit piece. So grace has to come first before grit. So again, grace, ease, understanding, insight within ourselves, and then we can move towards the resiliency. The word choice that I don't necessarily appreciate about this diagram is I need to change myself. I don't necessarily agree with that quote. I agree that self-responsibility is necessary as we're moving towards our own healing and taking claim of who we are as an individual. But again, the word choice, I need to change myself, is quite problematic, as I believe that we are perfect just as we are, and that sometimes we just kind of need to shift the needle. It's not a complete overhaul. It's more shifting the needle and then moving towards neutrality and accepting where we might be able to shift some things around in order to still move back to our own authentic self. Again, self-forgiveness, that's part of the grace again. Grounding. Again, all these exercises that we're doing tonight are grounding in nature, where we're coming more aware of our physical body, our emotional state, our mental being. And then finally moving towards that element of joy and resiliency. Within this pyramid of healing, again, I really like how it shows the arrow up, the journey itself. And the journey can go every which way, so it's not a continual arrow up. It might be one way back and then the other, and then a complete circle at times. I am open and curious. And you probably have heard me use the word curiosity a lot this evening. Curiosity, insight, awareness, and observation are all words that I tend to use on a daily basis for myself and for others, as it brings us to a sense of neutrality, a sense of not really moving into that judgment piece of right and wrong. Again, it gives you the power back and allows you to dictate what is best for yourself. So again, I am open and curious to what is happening, even as I move within this healing. And it's not all rainbows and sunshine. This pyramid definitely looks like rainbows and sunshine. When we are healing, it is messy, it is all over the place, but how can we continue to offer an element of curiosity even amidst our healing, which leads us to the next point, step 2, resiliency. So before we get there, I find that this diagram is quite helpful in elements of self-care, because I think that society likes to paint a picture of what self-care is. And it usually is like bubble baths and going to a yoga class, which is part of self-care, but it is like the very tip of the iceberg. So this diagram of self-care really shows what tools we can use for emotional, cognitive, physical resiliency. And this is kind of what we'll start to explore when we build that plan of action for ourselves. So there's a lot, and physical, professional, personal, spiritual, emotional, all of the things that we can continue to explore in ourselves, continuing to invite curiosity within. All right. So before we get to step 2, I know that I said that it's coming next, but we're going to do another brief meditation and how we can offer ourselves grace. So one of my favorite meditations is, this is by Tara Brach, who really does a lot of research into self-compassion. And this is also used, I use this in another training that I do for anti-racism work, because that's also another big thing where we have to examine very deeply in how we can heal. But it's an easy acronym that you can use to remember how to cue yourself for this meditation and how to invite curiosity and self-compassion into the space. Again, before we enter in, RAIN meditation stands for recognize what is happening. A, allow the experience to be there just as it is, in that neutral setting. Investigate, i.e. curiosity. Investigate with interest and care. And then nurture with self-compassion. So we'll take the next 5 minutes to do another brief meditation. Again, you have the freedom to turn off your video. And I'm going to turn off mine. So allow yourself to again find a space that is most comfortable for you. You can keep your eyes opened or closed. Invite in another breath and exhale out. And whatever has happened today, we can use RAIN meditation to enter into a state of self-compassion. And it might not come immediately, but know that the journey itself is where we can continue to gain insight and continue to offer self-compassion to ourselves. So in this moment, right here where we are now, can you recognize what is happening? What is going on in the present? That might be curiosity with your physical self, curiosity into how you're emotionally feeling right now. Then whatever is happening in this present moment, can you observe it neutrally? And this might look like a continual back and forth with yourself, where maybe your brain wants to label it, because that's what brains do. But can you come back to the experience? Or you might even need to enter back into observation of your breath, if that feels more grounding. But do take note that your brain might want to pop to different things, and that's okay. It's part of the process itself. But how can we continue to show up and acknowledge the experience to be neutral? As you continue to move into your own lived experience right now in this moment, can you continue to investigate with interest, but also care? Then whatever insight comes up out of this space, how can you show up with compassion? Maybe you need to nurture this inner child right now. That you can physically give yourself a pat on the back or even a hug, or envision giving yourself that gentle hug. Knowing that whatever your experience is, you are perfect just as you are. Continue to offer this element of grace with one more gentle breath. And exhale out. Can I invite you back into the room when you're ready? You might need to do some stretches or some movement. Maybe blink your eyes a couple times if you had your eyes closed. Again, just taking note of that experience. Maybe something came up for you that you might have needed to pause and not fully enter in, and that's okay. That's also you advocating for yourself. So continue to know that this process ebbs and flows as we move into grace. Step 2. We're not going to go over all of the research for the recommended tips for resiliency, but I wanted to just show a couple slides, and then we'll look at the plan of action into how you can choose to show up in your own resiliency skills. So recommended research has shown, and this is direct research from the pandemic, so this is quite recent, from how we can cope with what's happening now in 2020 and now 2021. Within the mental health concern for anxiety, the recommended tips from research-backed evidence is recognize the fear. That we're not isolated in this experience and that we're all moving through this together. And I found a lot of solace with that, even though like I gotta acknowledge like this freaking sucks, but it's also nice to know that I'm not alone in what I'm feeling. Other recommended techniques for any mental health issues surrounding anxiety is planning daily routines, rituals. Maybe this means practicing rain meditation every day or doing a brief chair yoga practice. Identifying an activity and hobby that brings you joy and engage in it when needed. For loneliness, because again, this is something that is quite unique to 2020 and 2021. And when we are socially isolating for social distancing purposes. The recommended research did suggest going on social media and live streams and Zooms like this one. Hey, you're doing it. What also was, I get this question a lot because they're like, wait a minute, I thought that social media was something that could influence me negatively. So it definitely does depend on how you're using it. There's features on social media that allow you to mute certain people that might be triggering you in certain ways. So we can use social media advantageously by following individuals that empower us and that maybe other individuals are triggering us. We can mute them or unfriend them. That's totally okay. Again, we're showing up for our best selves and whatever that looks like. So I definitely recommend using it advantageously. Spending time with loved ones, of course, in a socially distanced manner. And then maybe picking up a new hobby that can engage you, not just on social media, but engage you with mind and body. So some of the techniques that we use tonight already have engaged that space. Then I'll go with, let's do one more slide. And again, I'm gonna be, Erin, I would greatly appreciate if you could share this because there's a lot of different slides and tips, but for the sake of time, I'm not gonna share them all. Let's do panic and fear. So of course, and we've stated as before that you are not alone in experiencing these feelings. By being in a sense of community, this is why I'm so grateful for NAMI specifically and why I talk about NAMI all the time. That NAMI provides a community, a safe community that we can voice this frustration. This community is really important for when we're moving through our own healing practice. So a lot of the times, like healthcare doesn't fully provide for our own mental wellness. So communities like NAMI really does provide that. And that is, NAMI did not pay me to say that, so I wanted to fully acknowledge that. But I am a huge fan of NAMI, and this is definitely why I wanted to do this workshop, because this is community in action. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the plan of action and what that looks like. I'm going to send it in the chat. So you should see a document come through, a PDF that you can just pull out, and we'll go over that together, and I'll also share my screen. So this is your homework. I wouldn't be a teacher if I didn't assign homework, right? You don't have to do it if you don't want to, but it is an option. So 1 second while I do that. I was about to send you my W-9. That's definitely not what I should send. All right. So I just sent it in the chat if you want to go ahead and grab that. It might take a minute to you have to save it, and then you might need to exit out of the full screen for a minute. So just a heads up on that. And then I'm going to share on my end. All right, stop the share and reshare. All right, so this comes from, oh my gosh, I just forgot her first name. Dr. Sydney, till I forgot her first name, for a resiliency building plan worksheet. And a lot of what we've talked about when we even looked at the self-care diagram, there was a ton of different options in engaging our whole self. And this plan looks at that. So as we're moving really up that pyramid of healing and moving through elements of grace and giving our whole selves that full forgiveness and ease, we can then start to move into resiliency building. And they're not interchangeable. They definitely occur at the same time. So if you're, I know for myself, it's a continual grace practice every single day that I have to enter into for my own mental health. So know that if you're still working through a lot of stuff, just as I am, that you can still build your resiliency plan. They occur simultaneously. I think I got a chat. 1 second. Thanks, Anne. I appreciate that feedback. I really love it. I definitely wanted y'all to walk away with something really helpful. So recognizing signs of stress in your body, that physiological nature. And then there's questions that correspond with that. And you don't have to do these all at once. Maybe one day you're like, hey, I feel really crappy in my body right now. Maybe I should stretch. So that might be something that you enter into in that day. So these don't have to all, again, occur at once, but they're just questions that you can ask yourself to generate deeper insight for yourself. Building physical hardiness. Again, I really like this worksheet because it says one change I would like to make. So you don't have to make 5 changes at once. That can be very overwhelming. One change that I can make, one small shift, and who I'd like to tell about it. Is, again, community is so integral in this that when we voice what we're doing, which can be quite scary, find somebody that's safe where you can voice your vulnerability and continue to build strength through that process. So just a different example of make small changes, better sleep, which we're going to do yoga nidra in a minute, which definitely is helpful for sleep. Hydration, which reminds me I need to take a sip of water right now. Part 3, strength and relaxation response, i.e. calm body, calm mind. This is kind of what I referenced a little bit earlier when I was talking about the parasympathetic state. So within the central nervous system, you have your sympathetic state, which is like your action-oriented response. Erin, great job drinking your water, by the way. Then you have your parasympathetic state, which is really moving you towards the rest and digest, which calms you down. Okay, and both, again, work together. Again, ask you questions like, what at home can help me relax? Maybe it's, again, taking a quick breather, quick couple breaths. Activities at work that help me relax. Again, maybe you're working from home, so you get a 1 or 2 for 1 special with that. I know that I definitely do in this moment. And then try out relaxation strategies and ways to be more present. There's a couple links down here, and I've included references at the end as well that you can look at for more resources. And then we're really looking at a strength-based mindset, a growth mindset, not deficit. Deficit mindset doesn't lead us into that sense of resiliency. Growth mindset propels us forward. So we use our strengths and how we can move through challenges or even our everyday life. Again, what did you learn about yourself in these times? Continual insight again. So I'm not going to fully explain this just for sake of time, but the last couple, increases positive emotions on a daily basis. What brings you accomplishments that you're proud of with yourself? Engage in meaningful activities. This one's huge, especially now. And meaningful activities could even be cloud gazing. There's now research that my friend is doing, which is pretty cool, where even staring at clouds can give us a sense of meaning and purpose in our life. Counter unhelpful thinking, that deficit mindset. And then finally, create a caring community, AKA NAMI. So NAMI doesn't, of course, have to be the only community that you create, but is definitely here for help. But creating your special people that empower you when you're feeling down, but also when you're feeling great. And then here's the selective self-help resources if you're interested in pursuing more of that. So that can be your homework for later. It doesn't have to be accomplished all at once, but I definitely did want you to walk away with something tangible that you can pull out when you need it. And we're not gonna spend time on that, but you can do it after Yoga Nidra if you're still awake. So, all right, I'm gonna stop the share on that. Then we'll go back to one more item, and then we have about 15-20 minutes where we'll go into a more prolonged meditation practice. Oh yeah, thank you, Eric. Yes, spiritual, like that's also my research line, so I am quite biased, whereas the spiritual element is like really important to me. But I'm actually collecting research right now, which is pretty exciting, on the purpose of spirituality in teachers and their own resiliency. So, and spirituality can look like anything that you want it to, in connecting with ourselves and then those around us. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate for that. All right, there's the share button. I lost my sense of self there. Okay. Before we go into the Yoga Nidra, I did want to make sure that like just how I made the addendum earlier on, and that you can choose what works best for you. Developing resiliency and even this plan of action is definitely a personal journey. And it's multifaceted in nature. So you saw different tips. Again, one day it could be one thing that you need to ask like curious questions with. The next day it could be something completely different. And that's continuing to be multifaceted. And we can change our plan at any time. So this doesn't have to be something that you're like holding tightly to, and you're like, I can't erase this. This is my plan of action. You can continue to journal like what's best for you today, and that can continue to evolve over time. All right. Final thing that we will do tonight is have a bit of quiet time. So kind of like we're back in kindergarten, you get your own personal nap time. Setting up for yoga nidra practice, I'm going to give you a couple just best practice tips. If you want to lie in bed or lie on the couch, that might be helpful. But I would encourage you to come into a place that allows you to just fully relax. So if that isn't a chair, then awesome. For me, my favorite place to relax is just lying on the couch. And if you wanted to turn your video off during this time, go for it. But this will be about 15 minutes that we practice. And I'll lead you through, it's a very specific script. And I can provide that script to y'all afterwards if you are interested in it, okay? So take your time to choose your space of where you would like to do your quiet time. And I'm going to stop my share on this. Also turn off my video. So once you've found your chosen space, we'll enter into our yogic sleep. And so that's basically what Yoga Nidra means. Before we fully enter in, you may want to come up with a sankalpa. And sankalpa is Sanskrit for your resolve or your intention. And this is a short, concise affirmation or a really heartfelt desire stated in the present tense. So this might look like an I am statement. Or even one word that feels really empowering to you. And we'll come back to this during the practice itself. You're about to practice Yoga Nidra, which is a deep and relaxing meditation experience that really allows you to let go of distractions and worries and connect with your deeper self. Allow yourself to lie down on your back and relax in this fully comfortable position with your palms face up and your feet falling gently to the side. Position your head comfortably. With your head and neck in a neutral position. Feel free to even place a blanket under your head or a bolster or a pillow, and maybe even a blanket on top of yourself to find where you're most at ease. Now soften and close your eyes if that feels most comfortable for you now. And allow your body to slowly relax and settle into the posture. If you notice discomfort anywhere in your body at any time, first observe. If it continues to bother you, advocate and make any necessary adjustment. And then come back to a place of stillness when you're ready. Take a deep breath and exhale out. Continue to follow the sound of my voice throughout the practice, remaining awake and aware. Just allow the sound and easy rhythm of your breath to continue to relax your body. Allow each breath to flow through you like a rolling sea wave. Continue to observe sounds outside and inside the room, noticing them without really finding them disturbing or identifying them. And can you gently repeat to yourself, I am aware and I'm going to practice Yoga Nidra. Repeat to yourself one more time. I am aware and I'm going to practice Yoga Nidra. The practice truly begins now. Now is the time to state your sankalpa that you developed earlier. A conscious vow or affirmation stated to yourself in the present tense. Repeat your sankalpa in your mind 3 times with full awareness, sincerity, and faith. If you do not have an affirmation you are working with, you can always say to yourself, I am opening myself up to learning more about my deepest self. We'll begin with a rotation of consciousness, just allowing you to become more aware of your physical self. This should really be a relaxing journey that offers you deeper insights throughout your body. And you can think about the part of your body when you hear it cued, or maybe even see it in your mind's eye, whichever you find easier and safer. But make sure to not actually physically move the part of your body being mentioned. We can continue to show up in stillness. Become aware of your right hand. Draw awareness to your right hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm, back of the hand, wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, right side of the body, waist, hip, right thigh, knee, lower leg, ankle, heel, sole of the foot, top of the right foot, right big toe, second big toe, third, fourth, and fifth toe. Become aware of your left hand, left hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth, fifth, palm, back of the hand, left wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, left side of the body, waist, hip, left thigh, knee, lower leg, ankle, heel, sole of the left foot, top of the left foot, big toe, second toe, third, fourth, and fifth toe. Continue to remain awake and aware. Feel your whole physical body resting. Completely still and relaxed. Return to the awareness of your breath. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest, rib cage, and abdomen. With each slow breath, continue to feel the nourishing energy of the breath flowing through you. Now come back to the resolve, your sankalpa, and repeat it 3 times with full awareness, sincerity, and faith. As you continue to maintain your awareness of your whole self, notice your whole body resting on the floor or wherever you've chosen to lie. Begin to notice sounds outside the room. And then notice sounds inside the room. Visualize the floor, the windows, the walls, and the ceiling where your room is and where you are lying. And allow yourself to do some slow movements. When you're ready, roll over onto your side and take a couple breaths before making your way back into the Zoom room. The practice of Yoga Nidra is now complete. I'll give you a little bit to wake back up. So that is not the complete Yoga Nidra practice. That was a condensed version. Generally, Yoga Nidra lasts about 30 minutes at minimum, but it's designed to get into the entire parasympathetic state and even to our deeper sense of consciousness that can allow us to fully relax, but also become more curious into what our sankalpa or intention is and whether it actually lines up with who we are. So again, if you'd love to do another Yoga Nidra practice, tons of different options on Google. All you got to do is type and something will come up. YouTube offers that for free. And if you'd like the script, I can definitely send it to Erin. And she can pass it out. So that is all for this evening. I hope that you enjoyed your time, and I wanted to offer it up for any questions, comments, anything at all.